Right, we'll give everybody a minute to join here. I see the attendee list growing quickly, so we'll wait for everyone to join. Some housekeeping while we're getting started. There is a Q&A option enabled for this webinar, so we would appreciate your questions, and we'll do our best to answer them live or follow up in the Q&A app itself, portion of the app to respond to the questions. Looks like the list is still growing, so we'll give everybody another few seconds here to join before we get officially started. I'll go ahead and start with some introductions. My name's Chris Haley. I'm the Vice President of Practice Empowerment at Relativity. Before joining Relativity, I was with the law firm of Troutman Pepper, where I was the Managing Director of Technology for the eDiscovery team and their subsidiary eMerge. And been in eDiscovery generally for about 30 years now. I hate to sound bad to say it that way. I'm getting old, but joining me today is someone from a great partner of ours from Avalon. They're a super great partner of Relativity. We really appreciate them and what they can do for our joint customers in providing experience and expertise and services to make sure that all of our users have great outcomes. And so joining me is Martin. I'll let you introduce yourself, Martin. Go ahead.
I'm Martin Mayne here, another 30-year veteran, bunch of gray hairs on this thing. Been licensed since '94. I was in criminal trial work, a lot of courtroom time early on, but then I switched to the civil side around 2001, jumped right into eDiscovery. Plaintiff side, summation databases, managed review, and then I went to Fulbright Jaworski defense firm side, and then was there for a while, but realized even at a huge firm like that, eDiscovery grows and slows down. And when it slowed down, I went to the vendor space and kept really busy there. So I grew a managed review business through DTI and Epic. Then a couple of years at a Fortune 200 company, and now I found my happy place here at Avalon. I'm living in an RV. In the last 6 months, I've done like 20 Relativity demos from the deserts of Nevada, from Thailand, all kinds of places. But yeah, Avalon's been here since 2000. Started with a copy shop, 3 guys and a few copiers, and now we do eDiscovery, digital forensics, cybersecurity. We've grown kind of with the needs of our clients, and now we just get a lot of highly trained, experienced people solving problems day in, day out. Lots of industry experience, getting together to solve client problems.
That's great. Thanks, Martin. I feel like we could have a whole webinar, just the two of us going back and forth, sharing some more stories. I mean, we
Right.
have this, we go through these technology waves. It's like a cycle every few years. And frankly, that's what I love about our industry. It's always something new, something exciting. And here we are talking about generative AI for eDiscovery now. So there's always something new to learn and challenge ourselves with, and to help have better outcomes for our clients in using. So today we're going to have an overview of Relativity aiR. And so we'll spend most of the time talking about aiR for review and how you can use generative AI and aiR for review and Relativity together with our partner like Avalon to solve some really challenging issues. We'll have an introduction to aiR for review, a demonstration. Martin will show us a live demonstration of using aiR for review in Relativity. And we'll talk, and then he and I'll talk a little bit about how it's being used, how we're seeing customers use it and clients get benefits from it. And then with some time provided, we'll have an overview of aiR for privilege and aiR for case strategy at the end. But we want to take your questions that I mentioned during the intro here. We'd love to hear from you. Ask any questions you want in the Q&A. We'll check that periodically as we go here and try to answer them live if we can. Otherwise, we'll get back to you at the end.
And Chris, you talked about changes. You talked about changes in technology. This is a big one. I mean, ever since RelFest, I've been doing Rel demos. I'm a certified trainer, but seriously, since RelFest, every demo that I've done has turned into including a piece of aiR for review. Just because for me, this is where the technology is finally getting it closer to the subject matter expert, closer to the person who cares about the documents, and we've really gotten to a place where they can use the tools and get somewhere. So,
yeah, just picking up on that, Relativity themselves, right? When we started looking at where to apply generative AI into our product, it made most sense to apply it where the users do the most work. What's the most expensive, most cumbersome part of the discovery process? And that's reviewing documents, right? So this was an area that we already had experience in using technology to help us with this, and generative AI can take us to that next level, then great. And so that's one of the main reasons why Relativity started with aiR for Review as its first kind of foray into generative AI. We wanted to build something that was fit for purpose, something that our users could actually benefit from, that they were already doing in the product, and we could just make that experience better and more efficient and effective. And we could provide defensible results. We wanted to make sure we chose an area. Everyone's concerned about generative AI and all of the headlines you hear in the news about some of the pitfalls of generative AI. So we wanted to make sure that wherever we applied it in Relativity, that we did it in a defensible way so that the results are transparent. There's a human in the loop through each step. You'll see that in the demo today. And so we're making these clear representations of what's happening, and anywhere that generative AI is used in the product, it's very clear to the user. And of course, perhaps even more importantly, is security, making sure that however we use generative AI, it's really secure. And that there's, in fact, I'll even just go to the next slide since it's such an important topic. We can almost cover this on every time we talk about aiR these days. But we built all of the aiR products that are leveraging generative AI in using Microsoft Azure OpenAI services. Relativity 1 is already in Microsoft Azure. Your instance where you're leveraging Relativity is in there, so your data doesn't have to move. It doesn't have to leave the boundaries of Microsoft Azure. We're just bringing the OpenAI service that Microsoft offers and connecting that so that to your documents, so that your documents can be analyzed by a stateless, which means it doesn't change, it isn't learning, it isn't updating, a stateless large language model. In this case, all of our products today use GPT-4 Omni in the OpenAI service that is offered by Microsoft. So you're getting a great model and one of the top of the line foundational models. But your prompts are never stored or retained by the model. They're not used to update or improve the model. Your data and your prompts and the responses are never used and available or could be seen by other customers, by Microsoft or OpenAI. They can't even be seen by Relativity unless you give us permission to come in and help you in a support case. And so they're not used in any way to train or improve Microsoft or OpenAI systems. And so I know a lot of people have questions about that, but that's a big reason why we chose Microsoft Azure OpenAI service and attaching it to Relativity for the aiR products. We have 3 aiR products today that have been announced. aiR for Review, again, we'll spend the most time there and get a demo of that. aiR for Privilege, just what it sounds like. It's for detecting and identifying privileged documents and helping you prepare privilege logs. And then aiR for Case Strategy, extracting facts and summarizing documents and doing the things that, frankly, you want to get to. And the whole reason we do this is you prepare for depositions and trial to have a great outcome for your client. We want to make that experience even better once you identify the relevant and key documents in your case. Okay, so let's dive into aiR for Review. Again, I'll give a slight overview here of aiR for Review, and then Martin will take over and give us a demonstration live in Relativity. So aiR for Review does 3 things. It can review for relevance or responsiveness. It can do issue review, and it can do key document identification. So it will analyze the documents, every document one at a time, using the large language model and your instructions, and it will then determine if a document is either relevant or has relevant to a specific issue or key. So it has those 3 types of analysis types. And then you can use this in a variety of different ways. You can obviously use it to conduct first pass review for production. You wouldn't replace the entire review process. You still need a human in the loop. You still QC, you still validate. Very similar workflows to how you might review documents today, or you even use other TAR technologies to help with review, except that you would maybe use aiR for Review instead of first pass review. That's a great way to think about how aiR for Review fits into this puzzle. And then you might kickstart your review. Maybe you have a key custodian. You're trying to just get a handle on your case. Maybe you want to QC a traditional review, using aiR for review alongside a traditional review, or even an active learning or TAR review where you want to use it to QC the results.
And we do manage review at Avalon, and we're building this in to automate the QC process, make that go that much more consistent, that much faster. So yeah, we're using
it's a great way to dip your toe in the water for sure. If you know if you're not quite ready to rely on it to make the final production decision, then you could certainly use it for QCing a traditional review, or another great way to use it without in a lower risk, low disclosure type of situation is analyzing other party productions, right? You get all these large productions in, and you need to find the key documents in those to help you prepare and create exhibit lists. So aiR for review can be really good at doing that. Or just investigations, right? So where you're trying to find a needle in the haystack, trying to find if there was a bad actor or bad acting. And so aiR for review is good at allowing even just a single attorney to review thousands or if not millions of documents very quickly in a matter of days instead of weeks or months to find that stuff in an investigation. So really good use cases.
We've had clients who,
Go ahead,
not really ready. Yeah, we've had clients who are not really ready to have that AI discussion with the opposing party or with the court, and so they'll use it and then use contract attorneys to check every one of the relevant documents to do an eyes-on review to confirm all the findings. It certainly speeds up that process, makes it a lot more consistent. But
yeah, I mean, you still validate. We've been using TAR for forever, so we have validation techniques in TAR to make sure that we have found all the relevant documents, recall, and that we didn't include too many non-relevant documents, precision or illusion tests to make sure that we didn't leave any relevant documents behind in the non-responsive set. So those same validation techniques work great for aiR for review and any, frankly, technology-assisted review. At a super high level, just to help orient you when you see the demo. So aiR for review has some basic steps here. First, just like you would in any review, you draft, a lawyer or a subject matter expert drafts a description of the matter, what makes something relevant. We might call this a review protocol that you would train the lawyer reviewers on, or contract lawyers on, in your case, on what's relevant to you. So those same types of instructions need to be drafted and input into the tool as we call it prompt criteria. And then aiR for review will analyze each of the documents one at a time, using your instructions and applying them and determining whether or not, based on your instructions, a document contains relevant information, and then it will make a prediction on that, whether it's relevant or not relevant, responsive or not responsive, and include a rationale, a reason, and a consideration, and even citations back that tie it back to the documents so that you can see what it's basing its decisions on or recommendation on. And then in our workflow, a human in the loop, we encourage that a lawyer or subject matter expert would then check the documents and make sure that the predictions being made by aiR for review are in fact accurate and it's following the instructions provided, just like you would a set of human reviewers. You wouldn't just send them off reviewing hundreds of thousands of documents. You would give them instructions, and you QC early and often to make sure that they're understanding those instructions and coaching them back. aiR for review works with a very similar workflow. You start with a very small set of documents. You don't go run aiR for review on hundreds of thousands. You start with a small set of documents to ensure that it's understanding the instructions, and then you would then build gradually into the larger set as you gain confidence that it's understanding and applying your instructions accurately. So the last thing before I'll turn over the demo is just I think one of the big differences in how aiR for review works is the transparent results that you get. Unlike traditional TAR results where you just get a prediction of relevant or not relevant, with aiR for review, you get this, not only a prediction, but you get rationale, a reason why that aiR for review is making the prediction that it is. A consideration, what might make it change its mind, or consider what you should consider as an alternative, or what information might glean from a different prediction, and then up to 5 citations or quotes directly from the text of the document that support its prediction that it's making. So you have these direct citations in the product to ground the application in the document itself and ensure that it's not hallucinating or not making something up, and that its prediction is based on the actual text of the document itself. All right, so with that, I'll turn it over to you, Martin. I'll stop sharing my screen, let you share, and take us through a demo of aiR for Review.
All right, here we go. Are we there yet? Yes, great. So yeah, we did notice there's this little box up here. Don't let that bother you. It's just the you know, tools, and I can't move it out of the way. But what basically you've got a browser getting yourself into Relativity. We've got the first demo that I'm going to show you. When we first got access to the tool, we loaded up some Enron data, and we did everything you're not supposed to do. So what I really love about this is like to show how bad you can mess up, and still we're able to get some interesting data out of this. So did want to point out, to start an aiR for Review project, it's as simple as clicking on the it's as simple as clicking on the new project button. As you mentioned, you had a name, put a little description in there. All of the pre-work is set up your data source. So this is your sample of documents. So you're going to go find your save search where you've got your sample set of documents. And we're going to talk about the importance of that sample set of documents in just a second. And then you decide whether you want to copy an existing project you have or start blank. The analysis type, this is again what Chris was talking about. You do choose between relevance, looking at key documents, or issues. And then this is just your own note taking. Are we looking at early case insight? Is it an investigation? Or, what kind of a case are we looking for? So this demo that we put together, we had just thrown in some relatively innocuous Enron data. The layout is right here of where you put the prompts, where you prompt information on the matter overview. You focus in on the people, aliases, who's interesting in this case, noteworthy organizations, noteworthy terms, where you would put jargon, that sort of stuff. And to get back to the point on the sample, what we did wrong here is created just a random sample of 100 documents. You wouldn't want to do this, because look at these numbers right away. When I've got these 100 documents that we ran the analysis on, we've got a hefty number that are not relevant, a bunch of borderline, which is interesting, and then one relevant. What you want to do when you're putting a sample together, and here's where a vendor or a project manager, some of your tech people who are used to digging around in your database can help you, is your sample set, you want it to be primarily responsive documents. So you want to find a bunch of different documents that are different types of communication, different ways of looking at aspects of your case. If you were putting together a protocol to try and tell, some associates or a group of contract attorneys what's going on with this case, it would be like all the documents you tack onto the end of here's the documents that show this type of communication, this kind of issue in the case. You want to put a representative sample of all of those. And you don't want duplicates, right? Because you'll be, again, can't emphasize it enough. When you're running aiR for Review, you're running an independent review on each one of those documents. So if you have a bunch of exact duplicates or MD5 hash duplicates in your sample set, you're just doing the same review again and again on different documents. So I've done 3 versions of prompts on this case, right? So I'm kind of showing the migration of the start of the prompts to the end as you change and caress and dig in a little bit more on how to frame the prompts. So besides just getting a random sample of sort of kind of useless Enron docs, the other thing we did was just a copy and paste from basically a Wikipedia article, like very high level description of the matter overview, description of what's relevant. And the point here is that even when and we've got 3 versions of the prompts in here, and this sort of points out how once you go to the most up-to-date current version, Relativity keeps track of all the prior versions, right? So you don't have to keep notes. It'll keep track of the results, keep track of all the rationale, keep track of all the considerations, all the feedback that it's given you on those previous versions of the documents, and you always have that in the database and are able to go back and look at how your prompts have changed. So the main part here to look at is where you've got case summary, when you're doing a relevance review, remember there are three different types: relevance, key document, and issues. They're all totally different types of interrogations of the documents. This is a relevance review. So we've got all this information on matter overview, people and aliases, noteworthy terms, organizations, all that sort of stuff. Those inform the prompt as it goes out to AI, and they inform it, but the real meat of how the tool is digging in and learning about what's going on in the documents, it's looking at your relevance criteria. So third set of how to do this wrong. If you look at the relevance criteria when we did version 1 over here, documents are responsive if they transactions involving Enron's SPEs. So it's not even written in correct English, right? So again, don't try this at home. Don't get the wrong sample set. Don't start with these high-level, nonsensical. You can do a lot better than this for your first try. But the main point is we're about to dig in, and I can show you what it can come up with, even when we mess up like this. But so relevance criteria here on version number 1 is very high level, very simplistic. And what we'll see when we get into the rationales and considerations is this high-level relevance criteria is reflected in the feedback that we get back from the tool. I'm going to jump real quick to version 3 and show you what my relevance criteria looks like there. So from that single paragraph, we've got multiple paragraphs. We're digging in on financial maneuvers, communications with companies and people closely connected with the SPEs. So by the time we get to version 3, we're really digging in on relevance and what it means to be relevant. But let's go back real quick and look at version 1. And what I'll do is we'll show you a document here real quick that when we're looking at on version 1, this is it's saying that this is borderline, right? So let's go in here. So we've run the prompt. So this is, again, bad sample of documents, are very high level, copy and paste relevance criteria. And we look at this, and it's a very simple email, and it's just saying, I'll call, right? So the subject line, Transwestern's agreements with Enron compression services. So when we've got very sort of broad, simple, high level relevance criteria, the AI is going to dig in and try and figure out what's going on here. So look at our rationale. The document mentions Transwestern's agreements with Enron compression services, which could potentially relate to financial transactions or agreements involving Enron, right? So it is trying as much as it can to find something relevant in here. And the interesting part on this is by the time we get to version 3, where we're digging in and looking at kind of what relevance really means to us, let's look at the rationale here. This document does not provide any information related to creation or effects of Enron special purpose entities, options backdating, financial maneuvers. So it's really getting a better understanding of what we're looking for. And it can say there's no content in the email that directly or indirectly relates to criteria for responsiveness. So basically at that point, we've given it enough information that it could say, you know what, never mind. You really don't need to look at this one. So some other interesting documents in here. This one is going from, in version 1, we're at, the decision is, let's produce. Right. So again, back to our high level simplistic criteria. We do have citations, so language in the document itself, where we're talking about compression services agreement, Enron North America, good stuff. Looking at the rationale, focus in, this aligns with the criteria of transactions involving Enron's financial maneuvers. Looking at considerations, again, it always looks to the other side, doesn't really directly mention SPEs, option backdating, any of the other things that we said were important. But, in digging in and looking at it, it's saying, okay, yeah, let's produce this. It's kind of relevant. As we dig in and put together better search criteria, better prompting, working with that, this is going from, it's now borderline, right? So it is gone from produce, yes, it's a good, let's go, to borderline. And you'll see that the language is changing up, because it's now saying this could be significant in understanding the legal aspects of the case. And also in the considerations, remember, in the various sets of prompts, I started adding other entities that I was focusing in on, and some of those other case level details And as we were focusing in more and more on organizations that we said were important, it noticed that, this one is not one of those on the list that I put in there important. This one's really focusing on Midland Power Cooperative. It recognizes that that wasn't one of the entities I was really looking at. So it's weighing all of the information outside of the relevance criteria to help make a decision on if it's borderline or not. But, digging in there and using that, when as it's explaining to you what it sees going on in this document, it changes as we change those criteria. Now, finally, here we've got a document that goes from do not produce to borderline. So this is escalating up a little bit. When we look at the first level of criteria, this is just a sort of daily news coming, in from Forbes Daily. It's like, one of those newsletters, could be going to anybody. When we're at, the very high level description of what's going on in the case, it recognizes it's just a general newsletter. It's not focusing in directly on any of our issues. There's no mention of Enron or its executives. The interesting thing, though, is when we do focus in, as the prompt gets more specific and we're looking towards, malfeasance and we're looking at market manipulation, then by the time we get to version 3, when you think about it, if this document was in a, came into a particular, maybe it got into Andy Fastow's, email the day that he went and did a speech in front of the SEC or something, but it recognizes that, we've got some language in here that says firms that fudge numbers may face discipline, but the bottom line rule is still caveat emptor. So it goes from when it doesn't have enough information to really give you an opinion about the document to digging in and focusing more on what's important in your case. Maybe if this went to the right person on the right day, you may want to look at it. So it's surprising to me that even just starting with sort of high level kind of copy and paste and very simplistic terms, we can kind of dig in and see interesting things about the documents. So now let's just switch gears real quick, and we're going to go. If you get a demo from one of your providers on Relativity and aiR, you'll likely hear about Big Thorium. It's a case that Relativity has created using AI, put together, and most of the demos are going to be presented in that. So this is the Big Thorium. It's a large document set about discrimination. The idea is on discrimination, and again, we've got a couple of versions. We start with, a fairly straightforward first description of the case. When you go in and start a new matter in aiR matter in Relativity, what you'll see is this language in those first in the wizard where you're putting together your prompts. It'll have this language right here for the language and the matter overview. It'll have this language right here for peoples and aliases. It's the suggested prompts, like this is the level of descriptiveness you need. And the important part is that it is just natural language. You don't want to use legalese. You don't want to use, very specific, you're not like teaching the AI something. You're talking about your case, and you're using this huge, the brain power of the large language model and focusing it in on the things that you're interested in this matter. But so looking in at the documents, understanding that, again, Relativity did sort of the same thing I did that first time. They ran this across the entire data set. You probably wouldn't want to do that because second you look at 5,441 not relevant documents, you kind of think about, well, that's maybe something I shouldn't have done. But when we look at these documents, we focus in on the non-relevant documents. We dig in, we look at the documents. They are by and large, looking at specific details of the operation of this company. They're looking at production setbacks because things are happening. It can look in and understanding that we're looking at wrongful termination, we're looking at discrimination in hiring. It can differentiate between just a basic operation of the company and some of those other types of issues. You'll notice here that having run this across the entire database with our sort of general prompt, we've got 16 borderline and 23 relevant documents here. Let's dig in really quick. So the relevant, it seems like it's catching all right. The non-relevant anyway. On the relevant ones, let's look at real quick. Let's see here. Let's see. Okay, let's just start at the top. So this seems pretty clear. I've come across evidence that implicates you in the theft that occurred on June 2nd. I do see value in bringing the company. I'm willing to overlook this incident. So this is, and they're starting to, let's pay you twice your current salary to keep things running smoothly. So we're digging right here, obviously, into language that is right at, coercive in nature. Let's basically bribe you to keep things quiet, that sort of stuff. So yeah, pretty straightforward. Seems kind of relevant. Let's try another one. I wanted to kind of point this one out because it's an interesting set of documents. Um, Again, we're digging in, very responsive. Let's see what it means right there. And here to the point is, you really want your sample set to be a cross section of everything that's in here. Here we've got, a series of, it's from a Slack or using the Relativity short message format. You still have the ability to jump right into to highlight the language that is important to the rationale of why this is very responsive. I don't care, just make sure they're gone. We need to send the message to the other Indian workers. We won't tolerate any subversion. Okay, seems a little bit, focused to exactly the issues that we're talking about. We've got parties that we care about talking here. They're talking about fabricating a reason for termination, and all this beautiful language is coming just, straight back from the large language model, the generative AI internet, digesting and understanding what's going on in this, given the context of everything it knows about the legal issues and in this large language model. And again, considerations are still pointing out which things are not present in the document, but does focus us into what's important. So looks like it's getting the not relevant right, looks like it's getting the relevant correct. So borderline. Now, normally this is where we will focus in. So when we get to version 2, this is exactly where we're focusing in on. We're not going to fix up the prompts and run them across the entire data set again. What we do is you can see what the relevance criteria is over here. Documents are responsive if they contain information directly related to the legal issues or provide context to the discriminatory treatment or retaliation faced by the employees. Documents must be from the year 2017, and then it jumps to any documents containing communications between William Davis, Francis Ham, or Samantha Jones. Now, what we do is we tweak that a little bit. When we get to version 2, you can see that analysis was applied just to those 16. So now we didn't analyze the great mass of all the non-relevant documents. We just looked at those borderline, and when we look at the relevance criteria, we added in documents that discuss job assignments or project meetings that do not provide context to discriminatory or retaliatory treatment must be considered non-responsive. So there's a few things going on here. We're looking at a negative. We're looking at things that take it out of interest for us. And then, there's also some what you'll see as you learn to work in these prompts, saying things like mentions or must be considered. These the language has an effect when you're talking to the tool and when you're developing these prompts. So it does have some interesting results when you're looking at how this is applied to the document. So let's go back. Let's look at a document that went from. Let me turn this filter off. Whoops. This document, we're looking at a couple documents here. So we've got an email and an attachment, and both of them were in the previous version, and we'll look at them here, borderline responsive, right? Both the email and the attachment. When we look at the email, we see that it's focusing us in on this language. And this is, again, under the more general description of what's important in this case. And it's pointing out that we're looking at reporting on violations could be more detailed, suggest outline reporting channels more explicitly, and provide assurance of non-retaliation for those who come forward with concerns. Now, this is talking about reporting. It's talking about non-retaliation, but as you can see, the language is fairly general, and it could easily be talking about just a general corporate policy and not be in the context of some specific thing that's happening where there is discrimination happening and just more general. So this is an area, this type of document is what would have prompted that change in the prompt criteria, so that when we go to version 2 and we look at the same communication, it is noting, you notice we no longer have a citation to that, and it is talking about how the email mentions the importance of including case studies related to safety and ethics. It's giving you a very good description of what's going on here and why it could be related, but it discusses improvements, which in reporting violations and non-retaliation could be tangentially related to creating a better environment. It does not specifically address the issues of discrimination or retaliation against the plaintiff. So it's recognizing with that little tweak of the relevance criteria, it's recognizing that this right here is a fairly general communication that kind of takes it out of the relevant, out of the clearly relevant and into the area of, just either non-responsive or borderline. The attachment, which is borderline both times, is again more of a it's an attachment. It's a standards document, and it does in the language speak directly to anti-discrimination and harassment, training on recognizing and preventing discrimination, harassment in the workplace. And so what we see here is that the AI is recognizing that this is more general. It could be relating to a specific incident. It may not, but you really can't rule it out just given that language. That's right there. The Yeah, so that and again, this one was, look, as we clear this out, this one was all of these were borderline before and have been switched to either relevant or not relevant. When we look at this, what we see is when it was borderline, the highlighting was up here, and what was added by adding that specificity in our criteria. We added on this other language where the communication in here is really focused on activity, focused on behaviors that are being, labeled as unacceptable, discrimination claims, that sort of stuff. So the citation here has changed based on the specificity of the relevant criteria that we gave the tool, and it's able to focus us in on different language from before, but more specific language that addresses our specific relevance criteria as it's been updated. So main point here is that you don't have to run this across your entire database. That often is a bad idea. It doesn't, a bunch of, thousands of not relevant documents are not going to give you very good feedback into how to change your prompt. I'm, at the risk of kind of upsetting relativity, if you take this to its logical conclusion, yes, you're supposed to start with a small set of documents. You could, if you're scared of how much this is going to cost or how it's going to work, go in here and find one document that is right on point, that has, or all the issues in your case, and just run your prompts, tweak your prompts on that one document. You'll get all this feedback. You'll get the rationale. You'll get the criteria. You'll get, the citations to that document. You'll see that it read all the way, to page 97 of that document and found some language about your issues in that particular, document. But you can do this, it is each document, one document at a time. If you have a sample of 50 documents, it'll apply this analysis 50 separate times to those 50 documents. So if you're a little hesitant, do it one document at a time. Do it two documents at a time. Get in there and get comfortable with it, because the process of you, as the person who cares about this case and knows where your documents are, getting comfortable with adjusting the prompt criteria, getting comfortable with what natural language looks like when you're describing, getting legalese out of there, and just using natural language to describe the relevance, the issues in your case. That back and forth is what you need to practice, because we can't do that as a managed service, as a managed review provider. We're taking your knowledge of the case and leveraging that into the documents through a group of contract attorneys, that sort of stuff. We're doing what you want done, your thoughts about the case. We're leveraging that into the documents. That's what this tool is doing, and so that's what you need to get comfortable with. We can help you. Our project managers and our review managers who are in the database all the time can help you get samples together, can help you understand the types of documents, can help you figure out how to screen out, exact duplicates, all that sort of stuff. But this process of refining the prompts, tweaking the prompts, some have called it prompt engineering. That's the skill set that, years ago would have been key terms, and everyone has really comfortable at how good they are at setting it, putting together the right set of key terms to get all the relevant documents, bubbled up from a huge set of documents. This is the skill set, learning how to tweak prompts and refine those to really dig in and get to the issues of your case, and then leverage that across a sample set, across your entire document set. That's where the work is to learn how to use this tool. So I think I'm done with the
Yeah,
demo.
don't before you stop
Yeah,
sharing, Martin. One
yeah,
great demo. So much for that. I really thought it was excellent information about how Air for Review works, and I think it naturally demonstrates why having a partner like Avalon to help you with these projects can be beneficial. Martin and team at Avalon, they're going to have used Air for Review and know the ins and outs and how to really get the best from it and what workflows to apply to each of your cases. And so certainly encourage you to work with a partner like Avalon as you think about this. A couple of follow-ups. By the way, we would love to have your questions. If you have questions, please post them. We'll monitor that and answer them as they come in. Maybe a couple of things to follow up on here. So one, like, would you still would filter the data before you would start using a product like Air for Review? When you say, Martin, is that how you guys would approach it at Avalon? It's not a replacement for traditional filtering. It's a tool that you would apply to the data set that you would otherwise ordinarily review.
absolutely. So, like I say, a lot of the lawyering is in identification, collection, and in narrowing down, having a reasonable basis for focusing in on particular custodians, for focusing in on certain, date parameters. Certain of those things are the best way to narrow down, the huge volumes of data we have these days. You still have to have a defensible decision-making process to get there. But yes, this is, working on your as you get it as narrow as you can, as filtered and focused as you can, using reasonable criteria, date filters, custodians. But then, when you are kind of up against the wall and you still have all the tools of relativity to look at keywords and see if that does bubble up some responsive documents. And that's how we would help you get together the appropriate sample set. Look at some key terms. Use conceptual, clustering and to find some other language around those, to find some other ways that people communicate. Look at email threading. Look at, all the different structure analytics that are there to, filter down as much as you can, and then this is a high power tool to use on the ones that you really, where you really think you need to, that you would pay someone to go do a review anyway. Yeah,
Yeah, it's great. And I think one of the things that you pointed out, I think that is really awesome about this tool, unlike other technologies, it works just on one document or two
right,
documents or 50 documents. There's no minimum, right? Whereas
right.
we saw in other technology assisted review capabilities over the years that you would have to review hundreds, if not thousands of documents to see a result. With this, you can see results with just a few. So I thought was a great point that you made with that as well.
Right, and then let's say you have a sample set of 50 documents that result in 30 or 40 responsive, and you see like this got in and it found some really responsive documents. Feed that into your review queue. If you're still wanting people to look at all the documents and just confirm you're not comfortable, going with the tool doing the entire review, just feed that into the review center and have that start the process of queuing up relevant documents. And use the rest of the tools that are there that you're comfortable with, that you've already argued to the courts to that are reasonable in various ways. But yeah, that's an excellent
Yeah.
workflow.
And I guess too, like unlike other technology assisted review or other review methods, no contract lawyer is going to type up the reason they think something's relevant or the reason that it might not be relevant or give you specific citations to the document. It can be possible to get the review done if you did that. But this provides that rich information, which not only helps the review, but also continues to be available in relativity as you move on in your case, as you get into depositions and trial, so that you have the key quotes that you can pull from as you're drafting motions and briefs and preparing for witnesses to rely on, so that it's a value add even beyond the review, where you have access to sort and filter and use this information.
Right. And we don't have time to go into the various other types of review that's here. The issues review is amazing. Key documents are amazing in that the tool is basically coming back at you, arguing for and against. It's like citing things that the other side's going to, by the way, they're going to bring this up because this is a bad part of your document over here. But one of the really interesting use cases that I think of when we were going into like strategy of how to help your case strategy is that it is by the time you have your prompt refined and you've run it through sample sets and you've refined it to where it is returning what the type of arguments you want about these documents, it pretty much counts as a full-on review. So you can do if you have say 200,000 documents and a production deadline some 2 months from now, you can run a statistically valid sample of that 200,000 documents and review 1,000 or so documents manually and review 1,000 or so documents using AI. And from those stats, you will know exactly how many documents, well, not exactly, but close enough how many documents you're going to end up producing if you do a review of that entire document set. You'll know how much it's going to cost you to do the review, whether you use AI, aiR for review across the whole data set or a group of contract attorneys. You can get an estimate about that, but you'll have all of that information, the number of relevant documents, the how long and how expensive that review is going to take, and you can hang on to that information and not do the review. Just know that it's going to cost you that much to take that next step, and have that in your strategy about whether you've spent that or not going to spend that to negotiate settling with the other side.
Yeah, that's great. Maybe you could let me share my screen again, and we'll wrap up on kind of the slides here and move into aiR for privilege and aiR for case strategy in the last few minutes we have. Thanks. There's also a question that came in. aiR for review and all the aiR products are only available in Relativity 1. So you would need to make sure you specify that if you had both choices of server or Relativity 1, it would need to be Relativity 1. And that's important, and it was because we need the cloud scale and the performance of the cloud, and the Microsoft Azure OpenAI service that's in the cloud to run aiR. So that's why that is. It's a Relativity 1 only product. All right, so wrapping up with aiR for review, share my screen here again. So the aiR for review, we've had clients been using aiR for review in a variety of ways over the last year. We've had, probably thousands of jobs and millions of documents run, real client data run. I'm aware of customers that are using this today to analyze their data on their actual cases. And every matter that we've measured, on average, has been 30% more accurate. aiR for review, because of its understanding of language and its applying of next word understanding, is finding the nuances that maybe were missed in other technologies or other reviews. You can imagine a human reviewer might miss a single sentence on page 28 of a 30-page document as they get tired throughout the day, or in technology assisted review, where maybe it's just a small portion of the document, but the overwhelming majority of the document is not relevant. And so things like that aiR for review picks up on nuances much better. So you get higher recall and precision is what we're finding with aiR for review. It's 70% faster. aiR for review functions like 100 contract lawyers working 24/7. You can run hundreds of thousands of documents through aiR for review a day. So you can really get through a lot of documents once you've refined your instructions, your prompt criteria, and are ready to apply it to the large data set. So we've had cases where a single lawyer has been able to review 1 million documents in just a couple of weeks by themselves using aiR for review.
And I got to add to that, as someone who provides managed review, it is challenging to tell contract attorneys read every page of the document. Once you've got a document that's responsive, it's responsive, the tendency is to say, okay, let's check it and move on. And it's a challenge to be as thorough as aiR for review can be, because it will find that language on page 28 and cite back to it and say, if that's the most important language that relates to your matter, and it's not in the first 5 pages, it's tireless.
Yeah. So just kind of, again, wrapping up aiR for review here, there's some clear benefits, right? New levels of efficiency. You're going to find information, the relevant information faster, get rid of the non-relevant information faster. You're going to have more consistency. It's going to be applying your prompts and instructions consistently across them, unlike a team of contract lawyers where they might have differences of opinion of what makes something relevant. aiR for review is going to be applying your instructions very consistently. going to have these transparent results and that add value beyond the review that you can use as you move into deposition and trial, and just general overall, I think, better collaboration. It's bringing in the senior associates or partners into this process and helping draft the review prompt criteria and the refinement of it. And so getting more involved in the case and seeing the results, I think it provides that type of an opportunity for us.
One point, as with tar, there, you know, and with any of these other air products, there are the documents that are appropriate for use, and there are going to be a subset of documents that just don't work. So we are going to still need to make sure and find those documents, make sure they're reviewed as well, get some eyes on them if they're not appropriate for air. But
that's great. Yeah, and honestly, Relativity aiR for Review is available now. It's in use now. aiR for Privilege is available now and in use now. With our clients. The last few minutes here, I'll cover aiR for Privilege and aiR for Case Strategy. So at a high level, other webinars can cover them in deeper. But aiR for Privilege is for conducting first pass privilege review, helping you create and accelerate the creation of privilege logs by providing draft privilege log descriptions and QCing those decisions. It works by removing the noise. It's not just using generative AI. It's using a combination of proprietary AI, which we found was critical. We've always had, or at least for the last few years, we've had privileged products that didn't use generative AI, use other forms of AI, and it never quite got to the holy grail of finding the most accurate privilege information. And generative AI by itself probably won't be able to find it all. You need this combination of context of who a social network of who's talking to who and understanding when a document refers to Vince. Is that the salesperson Vince or is that the attorney Vince? And is legal advice being conveyed in this document? So you need this combination of AI, both generative, machine learning, and other types of AI to really help create a more thorough privilege review and accurate privilege review process. And that's what we've built in aiR for Privilege. It's not just generative AI. It's not just other AI. We've combined them to predict the privilege. I don't have time to go through all these in detail, but there's still a human in the loop. It will present you with a list. It doesn't just, you could input your list of lawyers that you have in your case like you would in any review, but it will also analyze the documents themselves and predict who the lawyers are. I know oftentimes clients would give us a list of lawyers and it just wasn't complete, or it wouldn't recognize that the partner at my firm used his Gmail account to email the CEO of the company. We might miss those kinds of things. And so we didn't know to look for the Gmail account. And so aiR for Privilege will identify all the lawyers and their aliases in the document set and let you confirm whether or not they are in a legal role and whether they're privilege conferring or privilege breaking. Maybe it's the lawyers from the other side in the case, so they might be privilege breaking. So there's still a human in the loop that lets you define who the privilege actors are, but it will suggest them to you based on the social network that it creates. And then, like we saw in aiR for Review, it will provide you with a prediction, whether it's wholly privileged or needs redaction, a rationale or a reason why it believes this document is being predicted as privileged, a consideration, what could change its mind, a draft privilege log description, and citations of the evidence in the document that supports its prediction of privilege, so that you could see right away and have a much easier time QCing the results by having these citations being provided to you. So very similar type of workflow and results that we saw in aiR for Review, providing a lot of advanced accuracy, using a combination of AI, reducing risk. Nothing worse than producing a privileged document. Accelerating privilege log creation by having these draft privilege log descriptions, and ability to just basically do all this in a matter of hours or days instead of weeks or months. So much faster, a lot less time required to get to early results that you can then QC and validate. And aiR for Case Strategy is a tool to generate lists of facts, create chronologies, summarize your key documents, and even help create witness outlines and witness summaries and deposition outlines. So a lot of great tools in Case Strategy. aiR for case strategy is in advanced access and will be in limited general availability to customers at the beginning of next year. And then ultimately will be in general availability probably sometime mid next year. The way it works is very similar to what we saw in aiR for Review. You summarize what your case is about and what's important to you, what the issues are in your case. And then it will generate facts, including the name of a fact, the description. It will still give citations to the fact in the documents so that they're grounded in the document itself. It will tie the fact to the issues that you've described in your case, what entities are involved in the fact. And it'll even tell you whether a fact is helpful or harmful based on your description of the case and your position in the case. So a lot of really helpful things. And again, we've had a product, Case Dynamics, in Relativity for a long time that frankly wasn't used very much because it's a lot of work. And I think back to how many times I used to in my career would push things like Case Map and other products that are really good, but it was just so much manual work. And the lawyers and associates in our firms and paralegals would gravitate back to Word and Excel, what they were most comfortable with. But I think if we can accelerate getting the facts in a first draft of the facts into the product like this using generative AI, that's really going to accelerate and entice the use of these types of tools.
I was going to say there's a lot of heavy lifting to make this work right in Case Dynamics and just even jump starting it using AI and being able to get it going. I think to get to like this point where you can add to it and tweak it and make it better, but yeah, to eliminate all that heavy lifting is great.
Yeah. So also just helping generate a first draft of witness outlines and witness summaries. If you want to summarize the witness's involvement in the case, it will include exhibits to it and different sections to describe what the background of the witness or what the witness's involvement in the matter was. Also being able to export this information. We provide a rich text editor within Relativity to collaborate and refine and edit the first draft that it generates. But you could, of course, export to Word and including the exhibits with it as you start to get ready for depositions and trial. So you can export it out of Relativity. And of course, great tools with synchronized and transcripts and synchronized video depositions. To summarize those. Summarizing a deposition is very different than summarizing a document. So having the ability to summarize and based on topics or issues in your case and organizing the summaries that way is really helpful. So it's exercise that many paralegals and associates do. And so if you could have something like aiR for Case Strategy generate that first draft to accelerate those overviews and summaries, it's really helpful. So aiR for Case Strategy, again, is in advanced access right now with limited general availability and general availability coming next year. A couple questions are coming in here at the end. I mentioned at the beginning, we use Microsoft Azure OpenAI services for all of the aiR products into currently the GPT-4 Omni model, large language model that's made available in the Azure OpenAI services today for all of the aiR products. The next question was about, is this replacing Case Dynamics? And Case Dynamics still lives on in Relativity, but this is basically Case Dynamics on steroids, using generative AI to accelerate that first draft of the fact generation, but adding additional features for summarization of the documents, summarization of transcripts, and generating those first drafts of witness outlines and deposition outlines. So really just building on and making Case Dynamics even better and improving our transcript and video synchronization capabilities within Relativity that have been there but not perfect. So we're really working to improve those as part of Case Strategy as well. Last question is related to hallucinations. It's a great question, something we tried to address throughout the product. A couple things I'll point out is that we throughout the process today and the demonstrations you've seen, we have these citations. And so citations that we generate in the product are used to ground aiR for Review and aiR for Privilege and aiR for Case Strategy within to make sure that the predictions being made and the information being provided are in fact found in the document. In aiR for Review, we have an actual check that happens, where the citations that are predicted by and you being used by aiR for review to make its prediction, we check to make sure that that exact text is found in the text of the document, to prevent it from returning results that could be a hallucination. So we're grounding it in the document itself and ensuring that the prediction being provided is based on text in the document. So a lot of questions there at the end. So thank you for that.
And in addition, the
yeah, go ahead,
rationale
Martin.
the rationales and considerations, they do tend to cite back to the other criteria from the prompts, the case summary, the individual parties, all of that sort of stuff. So all of them are grounded back with a reference to, you know, where the prompt came from and talking directly about that. So everything I have seen, they have some of the considerations and some of the rationales have brought other interesting sort of large world knowledge back. They've mentioned other Enron entities, for instance, that were not mentioned in the prompt anywhere, but just sort of from general knowledge back to but it was on point and it was all directly related to the language in the prompts. Yep.
Yeah, great. I think we're at the end of time. Martin, again, fantastic demo. Great content. Thank you so much for that. Thanks for everyone for attending. We really appreciate it. There'll be a recording. We recorded this session, so it'll be available later. So you can refer back to it. I'm sure there'll be a link that will be shared. So thank you for joining us today. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to Avalon and Martin or myself at Relativity anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.